It ain't easy now. How could I move forward when I keep looking backward? I'm just standing still. How can I fight this obsession? Have I not learned my lesson?
Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, senior editor behind thesteelcurtain.com, with you for our very first post-game show of the 2022 NFL preseason, and it was exciting. I'm going to be honest. For a week one preseason game, it was exciting. The Steelers find a way to win. Final score is 32-25, and I've never been that invested in a fourth quarter of a week one preseason game in my life. But yeah, here we are. Joining me as always, the crew that does the post-game recaps, Dave Schofield. What's up, Dave?
Oh, not much. Well, what do I mean not much? A lot. This was great. Loved being able to watch it on NFL Network. Then I had to go to in the second half, I had to go to where I was streaming it. And unfortunately, I was like 4 minutes behind.
Oh my gosh, it was awful.
And so I couldn't go on Twitter until there'd be a commercial break. And then I'd have to be careful to not go too far in advance and know what happened. Honestly, I found out that the Steelers scored a touchdown at the end when they hadn't even they hadn't even ran their first offensive play of that drive. I saw it by trying to edit the knee-jerk reaction article, and it was already in there that they scored a touchdown and they hadn't even run a play on the drive. So, but that sometimes it's nice to know. It was great to watch, entertaining, lots of great things to take away from it, and lots of things to work on.
Brian Davis, welcome to the show. What's going on?
I'm so glad to be here, fellas. And yeah, Dave is absolutely right. There's a lot of things to work on. You can't get too high from this game, but there's a lot of things to be excited about. Is the hype real? Well, the hype was real tonight. Doesn't mean it's going to continue, but the guys that we couldn't wait to see in action look pretty darn good. And some guys that we didn't know what we were going to know about these guys actually look pretty good too. So I kind of feel really excited. I'm going to go to bed feeling happy tonight and optimistic that the Steelers have a future ahead of them.
We'll talk about all that and more. I'm going to agree with Dave Schofield. The NFL Plus package can go kick rocks. I'm trying to tweet like I always do for my followers about what's going on in the game. And someone was like, dude, you might want to get your internet checked. You're like 2 plays behind. Dave was right. It was more like 2 minutes behind. It was a huge lag. Really made me mad, but still, I watched it. I didn't do what Dave did. I didn't check Twitter because I wanted to see how the game ended after the Mark Robinson strip sack of Drew Lock. But we're going to get into all that in case you were someone that were not able to watch the game live. It was exciting, and it was exciting from the start. I want to go into some statistics, and I want to talk about things, but we're not going to do it necessarily the same way as we did in the past with offense and defense. We'll do that in the regular season, but preseason is different. I want to talk first. We have to talk about the quarterbacks first. The quarterbacks, guys. So each quarterback, both Trubisky, who started, Rudolph, who played the majority of the second, and then obviously Kenny Pickett in the third and fourth, no one threw an interception. Everyone threw at least one touchdown. And let's read you some of those statistics here. Kenny Pickett leads the team in terms of yardage. He was 13 of 15. My over-under on the preview of 20. I wasn't too far off, but still 13 of 15.
I said 16.
You're right, yeah. 13 of 15 for 95 yards, an average of 6.3, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He was sacked twice. He had a rating of 132.6. Mason Rudolph finishes the day 9 of 15, 93 yards, a 6.2 average, 1 touchdown. He was sacked once for a 100.1 rating. Mitch Trubisky, who started the game 4 for 7, 63 yards, 9-yard average, 1 touchdown, no interceptions or sacks for a 126.8 average. As a combined unit, they threw for 224 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 sacks. But we're only talking about the quarterbacks, not the offensive line. Dave, I'm going to throw it over to you first. Let's start with the starter, Mitch Trubisky. What were your thoughts on Mitch's first start as a Steeler?
Love that first drive. Really did. Just to see them go and do what they needed to do. Mixing of the run and the pass, moving it down. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more out of drive number 2. But overall, I don't think Mitch really did anything bad or wrong or anything to change our opinion on him. And well, in my opinion, that therefore it'll be interesting to see how they play it coming out. But I mean, he showed that he wasn't the 2020 version of Mitch Trubisky tonight, which was great.
There you go. Bryan, what were your thoughts on Bisky business?
I thought it's exactly what we were looking for. We were looking for touchdown drive. We were looking for composure. I think he had all of that. He did not look antsy at all. He looked very composed, like I just said, and he looked like a leader out there. And it seemed like the team was unified as far as, believing in the whole system, no matter who the quarterback was out there.
I was really kind of thinking about how this is going to look with Trubisky. I like the way it looked. I actually like the way it looked with all the quarterbacks in terms of the scheme, and something that Kevin Smith, it might have said it on Let's Ride on Monday last week, or it might have said it on the Here We Go show, which I listened to in its entirety prior to the game, that this Steelers team is going to want to be a perimeter team, and they're going to want to get the ball to the perimeter, especially in the passing game, let their receivers do some damage out on the side. And so a lot of people on Twitter were saying, they're not throwing the ball downfield. This is the design of the offense, and I thought Trubisky did a perfect job in his first drive. Like Dave said, second drive wasn't so great. And then it gave way to Mason Rudolph, who, I mean, come on. First, he gets booed when he just goes on the field. Second thing, first pass attempt, that's when he gets the strip sack. Thankfully, the Steelers recovered, but that ends up turning into a beautiful throw and an unbelievable catch by George Pickens in the corner of the end zone for the Steelers' second score of the game. Dave, if you were talking about Mason Rudolph, how do you weigh in on his performance?
I like that he persevered. I like that he bounced back from that very first play. I mean, he got the ball stripped from him, got it right back. He was ready to throw it again when he got sacked. So that was pretty tough. I'm glad he stayed with it. Did what he needed to do. Nice throw to Pickens on that. We'll get to him eventually, I'm sure. But I was just glad that, he could have been rattled by that, and he still bounced back and still took care of everything from that point on.
Before I throw it to Dave, Bryan, I'm going to ask you both the same question. Dave, did you have a different feel between Trubisky and Rudolph under center? Any difference when you're watching the game? You're like, it just doesn't feel the same. Anything like that?
Me first or Bryan?
Dave, and then I'll ask Bryan the same.
Oh, question. Okay. Or Bryan looked like he was ready to answer. He can go for it. I feel like I've talked a lot.
That's yours, Dave.
Oh, okay. I just honestly, I really didn't. I just wanted to. I was trying to get a feel for the offensive line more than anything. I know the quarterback's important, but that's what I'm going to focus on. And did they kind of feel like the same kind of guy? Like you were kind of had the same expectations out there?
A little bit.
It was nice to see Trubisky take off. I think he is much more apt to just take off and go with the ball. But overall, I didn't see a huge difference between them.
Very good. Bryan, the first question is about Mason Rudolph's play in general. What did you think?
You know what? I don't understand why people are booing this guy. This is a great problem to have. What did you expect out of Mason Rudolph? Did you want him to suck? If he sucks, that means that you made a mistake years ago. But if you have a guy that has the heart to go ahead in there and continue to fight, like Mason Rudolph has always fought, and he's fought through some adversity that was not his fault through his career. And he was stuck behind a future Hall of Famer, and he never got a chance. And even when he got a chance, it was because that Hall of Famer was hurt. So now Mason Rudolph is doing what you brought him in here to do and competing for a job, and be happy that you have three quarterbacks that you like the way they played. And to answer your other question, Jeff, I felt like the system was kind of the main story here, because the system felt different, but the guys they were plugging in didn't feel different to me. They all felt capable to me. They all felt like I felt comfortable with all three of them in there. I thought that Mason was the one guy, though, that was more susceptible to being picked off because
Yeah.
he came close a couple times. That doesn't mean he lost this battle, but I mean, Mason didn't go out and win the battle like a lot of people said that he was winning in camp. Game on.
Yeah, that both the first two, they played well. Like you said, Mason Rudolph's always been a little bit more of a risk taker at times, but kudos to him. Like Dave said, the way to bounce back at that first play, your first play of your shot, in your opinion, and he has said this publicly, of actually his first real shot of maybe becoming the starting quarterback is a strip sack, thankfully recovered by the Steelers, and he turns it around and he doesn't let it impact him. I did feel a little different with Trubisky. I think it's just a mobility thing. Mason can run, but he's not mobile, if that makes sense. You saw the mobility in Kenny Pickett. We'll talk about him here shortly. And you can see the mobility in Mitch Trubisky too. So I want to get the super chat up here first. This is from Steeler Lee, gives us $4.99. Thank you very much. He said, I think it never helped that Ben didn't endorse Mason when he was drafted, so the fans want a reason to hate him. In terms of the hate, I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of reasons. It wasn't just Ben, by the way. You could chalk it up to Kevin Colbert saying they had a first-round grade on him. That it definitely elevated expectations and it never lived up to it. But still, great point by you, Bryan, in terms of the scheme.
But who cares about that now?
I don't care about it right now. No, I'm just
If I did want to say, the reason I tried to push that question off to Bryan is I wanted to look up something just to make sure I was correct. And that was, Mason Rudolph, his drive. It ended in a field goal, in a short field goal, all the way down to the Saddle 3-yard line. But my goodness, his second drive was 17 plays and 8 minutes and 22 seconds off the clock. That's the kind of that. But to me, out of those three quarterbacks, Mason Rudolph's the guy that's going to be that kind of guy. An over 8-minute drive for a field goal. That's just who he is.
That's Mason Rudolph. Like that's who he is. That is who he is. He's going to drive down the field thinking, man, this is beautiful. Just punch it in. And they settle for a field goal. You go back to 2019. It was the same thing. Think about San Francisco. How they gifted them field position over and over again. Field goal, field goal, field goal. So something to keep your eye on. But let's go to, in my opinion, and maybe this is because it was just the last thing we all saw. It's the most, it's up front in your brain because we all just witnessed it at the very end of the game. And that's Kenny Pickett's debut with the Pittsburgh Steelers in his debut in Acrisure Stadium. But still, Kenny Pickett goes out, and I will say this. You can talk about him playing against backups. You can talk about him checking the ball down. He didn't seem phased at all. He didn't seem like the scene, the stage was too big. Dave, what were your thoughts on KP8?
My goodness, it was with 2 minutes and 33 seconds left of the game when he finally had his first incompletion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was taking a long shot that Coach Tomlin thought was pass interference. I think it was great that Kenny got the one more shot there at the end, but that should have never happened. They should have still been driving. That was an awful spot. And how do they not review that?
They didn't review it, like you said.
And Coach Tomlin can't challenge that play.
No.
Because it's inside of 2 minutes. But that should have been a first down. I would have much rather have seen Kenny Pickett go and finish that off. That would have been great. So you're like, oh man. And then they do the bootleg, which I think everyone was kind of expecting. He gets sacked. They're really close to field goal range. And the defense made the play. So we'll get to all that eventually. But my thing is I feel bad because I kind of feel like the Steelers were cheated out of Kenny Pickett really closing it out. And my goodness, he still got a chance to do it, and they did it anyway.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on KP8?
I thought he had ice water in his veins, and the things that you described about him were the things that I was going to say. Stage wasn't too big. He did not seem scared at all. Yeah, so I'm just repeating what you're saying, but that's nice to know. He was comfortable. He got a great ovation from the beginning when he came in, and you had the great thing was the fact that Pitt was there. His teammates from Pitt were there. So this guy is the city's ready for him, but they're not ready to discount Mitch Trubisky. They're not ready to discount Well, a lot are ready to discount Mason Rudolph because of the time, because this is not 2018 and there's a lot of time that's passed. But Kenny Pickett was ready for that. And the most important thing that I thought he did, and I thought Mike Tomlin, brilliant job, whoever called this play, not just a play, but decided to go for 2. That was so important to Kenny Pickett and to the Steelers fans and the organization to see what he could do with one play for all the marbles. I know that wasn't for all the marbles, but that was basically 4th and goal from the 2. And let's see what you can do. And he completed it.
I want to go back, and Dave, maybe if you have it on your phone about the plays and how much time was left before the touchdown pass to Tyler Vaughn's, because I felt like they were in field goal range, and it would have been really easy for Kenny Pickett to just kind of kneel it or spike it, bring the field goal unit out. And next thing you know, he's hurrying them up to the line, and they're running a play. Do you have that in front of you, Dave, or no?
Yeah. Hold on. I'm trying to get up here. What it was when he scrambled, he took that snap with 33 seconds left. Well, first of all,
they had one timeout still.
Yeah, with 56 seconds on 3rd and 1, they ran, they ran up the middle. Then with 33, they snap it and he scrambles for the 8. Then the last one, they snap it with 12 seconds on the one that was a touchdown that ended up scoring with 3 seconds left. So they were at the Seattle when he snapped that one where he went for the touchdown, they were at the 24. So when he scrambled, he put them well into field goal range, and there would have been time where they could have, and like you said, after that scramble, they could have just went and stopped and waited and everything and called the timeout and kicked the field goal with 3 seconds left, but they didn't do that.
Yeah, and I saw him run up the middle. I'm thinking, there's the field goal, game over. He'll just spike it, and they'll bring the field goal. And I'm like, wow, he's running a play. Holy cow, they scored a touchdown. All right, this is great. Hey,
but that wasn't a touchdown scoring play that they ran, if you think about it. I mean, it wasn't like they were taking the shot into the end zone. He just got the extra yards to the receiver on the outside to make it an easier field goal, which was a really smart play.
Yeah.
And the receiver just shook up the defender and dove into the end zone.
Yeah, so I understand what you're saying, but it was a good throw. It was a good route by Tyler Vaughn's, and then he obviously makes a man miss. It was exciting. It was really exciting to see the team get that extra shot. We'll talk about the defense here shortly, and I don't want to spend the entire podcast on the offensive and the quarterbacks in general, but I will ask you guys one last question before we move on to other positions, and that is, after seeing the 3 quarterbacks play the way they did at Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh, would you change anything about how they approach the Jacksonville game next week in terms of the order of operations? Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I don't think you want to see Kenny Pickett going up against the 3s all the time unless you have completely decided that he is not going to be the guy for the first portion of the season. If you've already made that decision and you're just going to run up against 3s and let him keep getting his plays in on them, then that's, other than that, to me, I have a feeling I would start Mason Rudolph the next game on the road, and go with Kenny Pickett, and let Mitch go out with the 3s. I don't know that that's what they're going to do, but I would rotate all 3 of them through, just to see how it goes, just to give them all. If nothing else, you're eventually going to need to get Kenny Pickett out there with the number 1 receivers and the number 1 offensive line, whether it be that it's in the second quarter and those guys are playing longer, but at one of these next 2 games, you just got to do it just to give each one the chance to show what they're going to do. It's going to be tricky. I'm not sure exactly how they'll do it.
Brian, what do you think about that heading into week 2?
I don't want to see Mitch Trubisky trot out with the first team. He just did. He had his opportunity. He made everything of the opportunity, and now it's somebody else's turn. I would love to see Kenny Pickett go against the first team, because in the 3rd game, your starter is probably going to start that 3rd game because this is a new formula. So it's probably going to be Trubisky again. I think that plan is already set in stone, and there's a lot of other things that they are going to be doing here. They're trying to, it's like positioning to see who's going to be number 2, who's number 3. It's positioning to see if somebody gains interest from another team, whether you want to move Mason away or not, whether it's smart to move him or not. But they're looking at so many different options here. So I think Mason should probably start. I'd love to see Kenny do it, but Mason, has his opportunity to start. Trubisky, I don't even know if you play Trubisky at all.
I just was thinking of that. I think you're right, Bryan,
because he went up against the 2s.
Mm-hmm.
So see what you got. You might even see, I don't know, you might even see a little bit of Oludokun in the 4th quarter next week too, just to give him something.
Go with those 3 and sit and just leave Mitch out, knowing you're going to give him probably the entire first half, week 3. That is a pretty good formula, I have to admit.
We'll see. It'll be something to talk about, definitely. And we'll be covering that here at the Behind the Steel Curtain website, behindthesteelcurtain.com, as well as our podcast platform and our network. So make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We're so much more than what you see on YouTube and Facebook. I want to go to this super chat here from Steel Dog 88, gave us $5. Thank you very much for the tip, Steel Dog. He says, I know it's early, but I'm calling it Najee Harris, Anthony McFarland, and Jaylen Warren at running back, barring injury. By the way, I like what Canada was doing. Let's talk about those running backs, shall we? Steelers actually ran the ball pretty well. Combined 185 yards on 27 carries for a 6.9 average. Now, it should be noted that Steven Sims had 1 carry for 38, but even though that is 38 yards of that chunk, Anthony McFarland rushes 7 times for 56 yards, had a 24-yard long. Mentioned Sims' 38-yard run. Jaylen Warren, 6 rushes for 34. Master Teague, 6 for 31. KP8, 3 for 16. Trubisky had 1 for 4. Mateo Durant, 2 for 4. And even Tyler Snead, 1 for 2. Again, 27 total carries, 185 total yards, a 6.9 average, 0 touchdowns, and a long of 38. So let's talk about the Steelers' running game. Dave, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, it was really encouraging, with the exception of Mateo Durant, to see these running backs all average over 5 yards a carry. That's nice. That's really nice. I have to admit. So overall, I was happy with it. I was happy, especially with the first offensive line in their run blocking, not as much in their pass blocking, but I really liked their run blocking. I felt early you saw the entire offensive line, where the offensive and defensive line come together. It was moving a yard to 2 yards in the Steelers' favor when they were running the football. That's what I wanted to see, because now if you see all those guys running like that, imagine if it's Najee Harris now, because to me, that just shows that pretty much everyone did, except for the one guy that only got 2 carries, that everyone had over a 5-yard average. That tells me you put Najee Harris back there and he's just going to be in a better situation.
Agreed. Bryan, what were your thoughts on the running game?
I was glad to see them opening holes, because if they're going to open holes for a guy like Jaylen Warren, a guy like Master Teague, they're going to be able to open huge holes. Even if they open smaller holes for Najee Harris, he's going to burst right through them. So like Dave said, he's going to have an advantage because he's a superstar. But knowing that you have those guys behind him, and knowing that you had Jaylen Warren show out in the first quarter as well, I mean, he played a good bit. And knowing that, right away with the first team, that he was getting free and doing well, he wasn't beating up on third and fourth string guys. Now at the end, I mean, in the third quarter, yeah, he was, but when he's still doing it in the first, that makes you excited about something. So I saw somebody mention something about Benny Snell. Yeah, I think someone like Benny Snell's in trouble here. I think McFarland started the game and looked pretty good in the first quarter too. They both had some time with that first team, but McFarland, I'm comfortable with him as well. But the one thing that I noticed more than anything was the fact that Matt Canada's fingerprints were on everything, and it looked different, and they seem to have embraced it.
All right, real quick rapid fire question for both of you. Dave, how many running backs do you think they keep? Running backs, we're not counting fullbacks. How many running backs do they keep on the roster this year, in your opinion?
I think they got to go with only 3. I know they've done 4. I think they're going to go 3 because they need to keep another wide receiver.
Okay, Brian, same question.
3.
All right. This makes it difficult, and I want to make sure that I say this properly, and I have to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure after Jaylen Warren had this touchdown reception, so he catches the Kenny Pickett pass, gets over the line, and it's a good touchdown. I want to say on the following kickoff, he made the tackle on special teams, and they said Jaylen Warren on the tackle. I was like, wait a second, he's making special teams tackles, and he's scoring touchdowns, and he's running the ball well. What do we always say about Benny Snell? His spot's safe because of what? He plays special teams. Jaylen Warren can do that. I'm sorry. Now you have a different beast here. It's a different battle. Benny Snell better heal up real quick, because if you give this guy more time to play, Dave, what do you want to say? Go for it.
I want to go back and watch the game again to see that, because
they were make a tackle. I just didn't know it was right after the touchdown.
But I'll be honest with you, they were messing up stuff like crazy as the announcers. They were complimenting Master Teague for a great block when it was Mateo Durant there towards the end.
Yes, that was a good one. Jaylen Warren was credited with a total with a solo tackle.
Okay, that's one thing I wanted to check, because there's 2 number 30s. That's why. Yeah. Because that can be confusing when there's 2 number 30s, because the other one is Carlin Splittell, the defensive back. So
Jaylen Warren is a different body build.
Yes, and I didn't notice that, and I didn't want to just trust their names. But that's one thing I will remind people is there could, especially when you're dealing with players that have multiple numbers, not one player with multiple numbers, multiple numbers, or a number used by multiple players. It's easy for them to have gotten that wrong on special teams, because you're never really sure which guy it was.
I just got to jump in real quick.
Sure.
I think this is funny, and I'm correcting Dave for something he does not need corrected for. But if you listen to Bill Hillgrove, it was Masters Teague. The entire time. It was like the whole time it was Masters Teague. And I was laughing. I'm like, oh, Bill's in rare form.
Yeah.
So, I have to be honest, since he was signed, and I wrote the article for the site when he was signed, all I can think of every time I hear his name is Master P. I'm not sure the rapper from the 90s and early 2000s, like Master P. I mean, it's Master Teague. So I'm sure that at some point I'll probably say that. But still, I'm going to be honest here. Everyone's talking about Master Teague running hard. He did. Jaylen Warren looking good, both in special teams, catching the ball in the backfield, running hard. I was so impressed with Anthony McFarland. Here's a guy that if he can stay healthy for the first time since I've been covering this guy, and he was drafted out of Maryland, he showed some of that explosiveness that everyone was so excited about when they drafted him out of Maryland. I mean, when he was drafted out of Maryland, what did everyone watch? Oh my gosh, when he tore up Ohio State, everyone's like, look at this guy. Look at this guy. Look at the speed. Look at him get to the edge. And we never really saw it. I saw it for the first time tonight, but the question is still, and I'm knocking on wood for those that are superstitious, can he stay healthy? Like, that's the biggest question. Can he stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, then I'm all on board with the Najee Harris, Anthony McFarland, and Jaylen Warren trio of backs. And I think that would be good enough. So, okay. Mentioned Jaylen Warren catching a pass. So let's talk about the receivers a little bit. Receiving, Steelers threw for a total of 251 yards. They had a lot of people get targets and actually have catches in this game. Gunnar Olszewski had 3 catches for 47 and a touchdown. George Pickens, 3 for 43. Tyler Vaughn's 2 for 32. And a touchdown. Yep. Tyler Vaughn's 2 for 32 and a touchdown. Jaylen Warren, 4 for 30 and a touchdown. Connor Hayward had 2 nice grabs for 24. Jay Sternberger, 2 for 20. Miles Boykin, 2 for 17. Cody White, 3 for 13. I could go on and on. Gentlemen, before we get started and before we talk about receivers, hold on.
Uh-oh.
We're getting shiesty.
Oh, it's coming back. The triumphant return.
Okay, now I feel like I'm more equipped to talk about the receivers since I put the hood back on. All right, George Pickens. My gosh, George Pickens. What do you guys think about this guy? I don't know what to think about this guy. He's He's like a combination of Martavis Bryant with the attitude of a young Antonio Brown. He's doing the Antonio Brown dance and stuff. A lot of people didn't like that on social media, by the way. But Dave, I just want to talk about Pickens first. What were your thoughts on George Pickens?
Wow, that was my thoughts of George Pickens. No, it's not just that. He did it with the ones. It's not like George Pickens went out there and it was towards the end of the second quarter, the second half. No, he was out there running with the ones and then he was done. He was the guy. And that's why, you've been hearing a lot of hype with him from the national media now. Oh, this guy really should have been the best wide receiver in the draft. And yet, what's he doing now? And now everyone wants to start hyping him up. But it just seemed different. It just felt different every time the ball was thrown to him. Now he had the one long throw that, it was off a little bit. The one that Mason Rudolph aired out down the sidelines. If he could have adjusted and done something with that as well, I don't know that we could have talked about anything other than George Pickens in this entire post-game show. But the fact that he's not just some guy that's out there and's got to work his way up. He's out there with the ones, catching touchdowns, making plays. Very first reception went to him. Love it.
Yeah. Bryan, George Pickens talk. Go for it.
Okay, let's talk about Kenny Pickett first. Remember you said that the stage wasn't too big for him? Yes. My gosh, the moon is not too big a stage for George Pickens. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy has the swagger. He not only does he have the swagger, the confidence goes along with the swagger. He has the look of a superstar. He has the ability of a superstar. I'm just afraid of that bullseye. I'm going to probably say this, and I don't want it. I don't want him to be the odds-on favorite front runner, but they're going to be talking about him as a top 5 candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year already, because of this performance and what you saw against the ones, like Dave said. There is so much hype on this guy, but he lived up to the hype. I really think he's on another plane. Wow. He got injured last year. He worked his way back. He got injured in the spring, worked himself way back, played in the championship game, had a big catch in the championship game as well. Fell under the radar because he was damaged goods. So I'll put the air quotes up. But, that was just a huge gain for the Steelers. And they did something that we always get mad that the Ravens do. And the Ravens did it again this year with Ojabo. But they get that guy that falls and he's a superstar because people are just afraid of him. They weren't afraid of this guy this year. And they saw something, and it all goes back to that Georgia Pro Day when Mike Tomlin, with all those defensive stars at Georgia and all those other players at Georgia, is running routes with George Pickens. We should have known then that he was a shoo-in to go number 2 if he was there.
Throw in the super chat here by Blake. I think it's literal. I'm sorry if I mispronounce that. It's $1.99. He says this was a question, I guess, to Tomlin after the game tonight. Are you surprised by Pickens' play? His answer, no. No, he's not. George Pickens is a different beast. And I'm going to be honest with you all. If we're talking about the rest of this preseason, if he's going to be doing that type of stuff, I don't need to see him that much. I really don't. You have a ton of wide receivers that can get repetitions, whether it's someone like, Cody White, Tyler Vaughn's, Christian Blake, I think is the guy they just signed. George Pickens, if he's going to be that impressive, and I'm not saying he is guaranteed to be that impressive, well, he's going to be really special, but still it's something to think about as they move forward with how they handle their receivers and the playing time. But let's talk about the other receivers. Did anyone else come to mind? I know that speed came to my mind. These receivers are very, very quick, very fast, and then they're not all going to make the team. But Dave, what were your thoughts on the rest of the receivers not named George Pickens?
It looked like they actually signed Gunnar O to play wide receiver. He was out there doing stuff. And I think all the receivers did well. The only one that I felt that didn't really stand out much was Cody White. I thought maybe he would get more playing time early and his chances came late. Honestly, when you want to talk, I'm sure Jeff is still going to be doing his winners and losers. The biggest losers are the wide receivers that weren't able to play. because of everything. I mean, almost all the offensive players that weren't able to play because I felt like the offense was doing well. I mean, they put up 32 points, that they played well enough that they're going to have to overcome a lot now. Anthony Miller, Calvin Austin III. But I just thought overall, when they were given their opportunity, the wide receivers were making their plays.
Bryan, what were your thoughts on the other receivers?
Remember Antoine Randall L t-shirts? L yeah. Well, Gunner, oh yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of the Kool-Aid Man, and even though Kool-Aid Man was fat and Gunner's a little guy, but man, he just looked right out there. I mean, he's Ryan Switzer, and he can move. I mean, he's better than Ryan Switzer. He's a better version of Ryan Switzer, and he's a lot of people are saying, I'm seeing on the live chat, Wes Welker. He could be that kind of guy, but he looked right out there. He looked like, looked like he belonged, and he was playing against the first team as well out there. I like that. I like the entire look of that. I like Boykin. I thought, Boykin, it's he's a special teamer too, so he really showed off. Steven Sims looked pretty good. Cody White, I'd probably put him just on the bottom of who we saw out there. Tyler Vaughn's, I mean, he had the touchdown, but I don't think he's got a chance because it's so front loaded. There is so much there. I'm so excited. The big disappointment for me is a guy that I didn't see. You could tell me that maybe he was a scratch. I don't know. I didn't see number 17. I didn't see Anthony Miller at all.
He has a shoulder injury.
Okay.
He has a shoulder injury.
I missed that. So that's why I was asking first. That hurts because there's a guy that can really, they're loaded at wide receiver. There's a lot of options for number 5. And now with Gunnar Owen there, with everything else he brings you, I don't know why he would be unsafe.
For me, Mike Tomlin always says this: one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity. You could say that about Jaylen Warren. And I think in this case, you could say that about Steven Sims. Anthony Miller was probably going to be with the ones, probably returning that opening kickoff, returning punts, and he couldn't play. The shoulder injury, I'm not sure if it occurred in practice on Thursday or when it happened, but Steven Sims, you want to talk about taking advantage of an opportunity? Remember, he had that one run for 38 yards, punt return. He had the one for 38 yards, which is a really nice play, made a guy miss and was able to really turn it on. He didn't catch a ton of passes. Steven Sims didn't. He had one for 2 yards, but he made plays. He was noticeable on the field. He's now in my opinion, he's injected his name into the conversation when you're talking about those wide receivers that might be on the fringe and make the team or not. I thought that Steven Sims did that, so I want to give him some credit. Let's finish the offense here with the offensive line. Mike Tomlin said in the postgame press conference he was not happy with pass protection, thought the quarterbacks got hit too much. They only surrendered 3 sacks total. One of those sacks was that Kenny Pickett rollout on 4th down that he ends up getting tracked down from behind. But there were a lot of hits that, just quarterback hits. If I look it up quickly, quarterback hits, Seattle had 7 quarterback hits.
I was looking that up for you as well.
Dave, you always have your eyes on the offensive line. What were your thoughts? I
was trying to have my eyes on the offensive line, but I had other things that had to distract me throughout the game. That's what I'm going to really try to dissect when I go back and watch the game again is the offensive line. The biggest thing that I say that I already saw was the surge on the run game. I thought they did well in run blocking. I thought they struggled as a unit in pass blocking. I'm not sure. Like, it looked bad. Like it was James Daniels that messed up that one that the guy came through. Should have had Trubisky. Trubisky shakes him off and runs for 4 yards. I got to go back and look at that play again to see if that was really Daniels that messed it up or if he was trying to cover where somebody else messed up. I don't know right now. But there was some plays where it seemed like things that shouldn't have happened ended up happening. They can shore up the pass protection. I am encouraged by the improvement on the run blocking.
Bryan, thoughts on the offensive line?
You know what? I didn't see enough. I know I was alarmed when I saw number 78 and he got the blame. They said, "Oh, number 78," and they didn't say his name. And because I guess it was Batch who said it. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I think that's Daniels. And I even went to look it up just to make sure that I wasn't mistaken. And I'm like Dave, I kind of want to go back and look at that again. I like the idea that they were able to run the ball, and that just seemed like something they were not able to do last year. Pass protection's huge. We know that, but that was something that was not a huge concern last year. Quarterbacks are going to take hits. I get that. They got to clean it up, but I don't think it's ready to we should be ready for the Steelers to, fire up that panic alarm yet.
Yeah, I mean, week one, and you have to remember Kevin Dotson's still not in there. So Kendrick Green got a good opportunity to put some tape out there of what he can do at left guard. Hopefully Dotson can be back for next week so he can put his tape out there and see what that looks like, if it's any different. The tackles, Dan Moore and Chukwuekorfor for it, I didn't feel like it was horrible. There were a lot of people, some that are beat reporters for the Steelers, were really bashing the offensive line. I didn't think it was that bad. When they ran the ball, like you all have said, they were able to successfully move it. Pass protection, I think there's going to be some pickups from time to time. But, you have mobile quarterbacks, and that's a benefit of having mobile quarterbacks. And I would assume that Matt Canada, when the regular season rolls around, would start to design plays to help alleviate some of the pressure off the offensive line. So, but still, I got to be honest. I thought that offensively, this was a pretty good effort for the Pittsburgh Steelers in week one of the preseason. Let's go to the defensive side. The defense, let's talk about the rush defense first. Seattle finishes the game 26 total carries for 159 yards, a 6.1 average, 1 touchdown, and an 18-yard long run. DJ Dallas had 10 carries for 73 yards. Travis Homer, 4 for 41, and they had a bunch underneath that. So I know that in case people didn't watch the game live, there was no Cam Hayward. There was no Tyson Alualu. Pretty sure Larry Ogunjobi did not play. Am I correct in that?
I don't think he did, or Tyson Alualu either.
No, I know Tyson didn't.
I think he said that.
TJ Watt did not play.
That's the other person.
Alex Highsmith did not play.
Yeah, he was injured.
We're talking about the front, I think I just named Montravius Adams did not play with the ankle. So when I'm talking about the front, I could have just named the entire front. So keep that in mind before we freak out here. But still, there were still backups in there that had starting repetitions under their belts. People like Chris Wormley, Isaiah Loudermilk. So, Dave, what were your thoughts on the run defense?
The run defense was missing people, obviously. To me, the run defense was more about was as much about the linebacker play as anything. There was a huge difference when Miles Jack was on the field when he wasn't.
Yes.
And I think it showed in the run game and everything else. Because if you look, I was trying. Shoot, it didn't work on me. I was trying to figure out the statistics in the first quarter for running, and I'm not able to bring them up right now because it's not working properly. But it didn't feel like that Seattle really started to run the ball super effectively until the second quarter and on. So that's one of the things that I would look at. So if you want to take anything positive out of it, that's where you look for it. Other than that, there really wasn't anything positive to talk about when it came to stopping the run.
Bryan, thoughts on the rush defense?
Well, first and foremost, this is the number one thing that I was thinking watching this game, that preseason is really meant for the offense to shine more than the defense, especially that first preseason game when a lot of these guys are out of there. It is so much easier for a running back, even if it's a third or fourth string running back, to look better than a second, third, or fourth string defender, because it's just so much easier, it seems to me. Now, I really did not think that there was too much to be concerned about because of the guys that weren't in there. for me, the media, the local media, the beat writers, they are searching for something to scare us with, something to say we need to be concerned about. We always need to have that bad guy. After Deontay Johnson signed his contract, we need a new bad guy. And it's now the new bad guy is Devin Bush, because he's the bad guy, because he's the guy you've got to be concerned with, and everybody's ready to run him out of town. I want to give him a full preseason, but I agree with Dave. Miles Jack, it looked so much better when he was in there. He seems to be the man on that defense as far as linebackers go on the inside, and he seems like he's going to control the narrative when it comes to the run. I'm not concerned, because when I look at this entire game, guys, I find it hard to find something to be too concerned with. Of course there's concerns, but too concerned? Nah. First preseason game, knocking off the rust. Yeah, they look pretty good.
Yeah, rush defense, and Sean Manahan gave us $2. I'll put this tip in the tip jar. $2. Thank you, Sean. Run defense has to be better, but no starters on the D-line. Yeah, there is that caveat there, and people will always say, well, that's an excuse and that's a crutch, and I get it, but at the same time, you hope that your backups can go in and put up a fair fight, and I think they did it in some instances, but they were missing a lot of people. Alfred gave us another $1.99. Says can't evaluate Bush without the first defense, period. I have to be honest. I did not notice Devin Bush as much as some people did, or say that they did. Some people were saying he was awful. I thought Miles Jack was noticeable. You know, sometimes when you're watching these games, the preseason games, if they really pop on the screen, Miles Jack popped. I could see him. And so I thought he played well. I don't think he played a ton, but let me see here for his stats. Miles Jack had 2 tackles. He was registered 2 tackles. So take that for what it's worth. Let's go to the pass.
I was going to say, can I say one thing? Because this is a transition to the pass defense.
For sure.
Although he left with the possible shoulder, but then wasn't mentioned at the end. Wasn't it nice to see Akello Witherspoon doing a nice job in run defense?
Oh,
he did a jet sweep, and then the play was a run play up the middle. Ended up not being for a huge gain, but he came in and got involved in that, and that's
made the stop.
That's when he got hurt. So that was encouraging, because that was one of his biggest problems last year. He really needed to improve on that. So that's a positive.
I had to tweet at Jeffrey Benedict and said Akello Witherspoon. I think he gave him the middle finger because Jeffrey was at the game, because he said, "Hey, did you see that tackle when he made that tackle?" So and then Jeffrey responded, and then he hurt himself.
Yeah.
So, but no, let's talk about the pass defense. When Geno Smith was in the game, and think about who's playing when. Geno Smith was 10 for 15 for only 101 yards. 6.7 average. They was sacked once with an 85.7 rating, just never got into a rhythm. When Drew Lock came in the second half, again, consider who he's playing against. 11 of 15, only 102. It just looked like they moved the ball so much better. He had a rating of 131.1. When I look at the minutia of the pass defense in terms of passes defensed, the Steelers finished with 4. Isaiah Loudermilk got his paws on 1. Trey Norwood had 2. James Pierre credited with 1. So, gentlemen, what did you think about the pass defense in this game? Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, if you would have told me they had 4 passes defense, that's how I would have broke it down. I wasn't sure if there was any other. Because I remembered, one at the line. Pierre had a nice one. I know Norwood got in on a couple. I thought the pass defense overall was better than the run defense, just like it was last year. I'm not saying that it was locked down, shut down. Coach Tomlin said it great in his press conference, that he said the communication among the secondary was great early on. He was saying specifically cornerbacks, because he was asked about them, but it wasn't there. It wasn't great as the game went on and those other players came in, and that was part of their problem. I was happy with the pass defense. I would have liked to have seen, because we're going to throw it in. Are you including the pass rush with this?
We can, or I could do that separate. Let's do it separate.
Okay, we'll do it separate then. So yeah, Overall, I thought it was. I mean, and this is with no Minkah Fitzpatrick. I thought that they did a nice job with that early group.
Okay, Brian, what are your thoughts on the pass rush? I'm sorry, geez, Dave's got me all messed up. The pass defense. There we go.
You know what? Trey Norwood, why have we been overlooking this guy? I mean, from the beginning, I was seeing 21 all over the place. It was like when you're on the strip in Vegas and they're trying to give you those little cards for strippers, where they're everywhere. That's where Trey Norwood was. He was in your face and he was all over the place. And I got to tell you, I was really excited to see that. DeMonte KZ, I think he went out with a concussion. I'm not sure. Did they say?
I think he was evaluated, but he had his helmet when he came out of the.
It was one of those things where the NFL officials can tell a player that they have to leave for evaluation, and that's what it was. It doesn't mean he had one, but he had to go and get evaluated. So,
well, Levi Wallace and KZ, I thought they showed up on a couple plays, but there was nothing egregious. There was nothing to say, "Oh my gosh, we are in trouble." There was nothing for me to say, "Oh gosh, let's get Joe Hayden in here stat." Yeah. I just really thought that this entire game, and this is my theme for it. I'm not trying to be a homer and just overexcited for this and over optimistic, but I just think that we're searching for fans because we're snake bitten for something to be wrong. And I think they're following progressions. And this is the first preseason game one that I felt pretty good in a long time, because a lot of them are squeakers. A lot of them are, you're just like, okay, they won. Winning doesn't matter, but they've got a lot to work on. Yeah, of course they've got stuff to work on. They're going to continue. They're always going to have stuff to work on. But, I really like the defense in this game because when they had to come up on third down, they came out pretty big. I think what was the final stat was maybe 6 for 14 on third down. Something like that.
I got that. I had that here. Oh wait, that was for that was
it up here.
No, I have it right here on third down. You mean how the defense did?
Yeah,
it was third down. It was 5 of 11.
Okay. So I'm off a little bit, but that's still under 50. They're keeping them under 50% on that. I just thought the one word that I'll describe the pass defense, I thought they were flying. And one guy I did not mention, Arthur Millette. He looked pretty good. Now, I mean, there was one play where he got beat, but there was nothing where I was like, oh gosh, we're once again, let's get that list out and pull out some feelers and see who we could bring in.
Yeah, it's the secondary. I was really interested to see how they had everyone lined up as the starters, and Cam Sutton on the outside, Akella Witherspoon on the outside, and Arthur Millette was in the slot, and then they bring in Levi Wallace. Really interesting what they're going to do there. They have a lot of options, a lot of versatility. I do have a better feel for Cam Sutton this year. I feel like he's going to have a better season. His expectations this year, he knows what he's doing. I mean, Mike Tomlin's pumped this guy up as one of the smartest players he's ever been around. So he's in the final year of his current contract. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard. Now, Dave did say he wanted to talk about the pass rush separately. So here's what the Steelers finished. They finished with 3 sacks. Mark Robinson had the big sack. That was the strip sack, which was recovered by Tuzar Skipper. Henry Mondeau had one on Geno Smith. And this name, Hamilcar Rashed Jr.
Yep. Hamilcar Rashed.
There you go. He had a sack. So there you go. And then tackles quarterback hits for obviously 4. Robinson, Mondeau, Leal was credited with 1, and then Rashed as well. So what did you all think of the pass rush, Dave? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more quarterback hits. I mean, Geno Smith isn't the easiest guy to hit either. I mean, it's not like he's standing back there not moving like Ben Roethlisberger. Speaking of which, did you hear them say Ben Roethlisberger all the entire broadcasts?
I think once.
I don't remember hearing it at all, but the other thing was I heard each announcer at one different time accidentally call it Heinz Field.
Yep.
So we had more Heinz Field than we had Ben Roethlisberger. So I'll just throw that out there. But boy, I really got off topic quick there. That was almost as bad there. I would have really liked to have seen a little bit more pressure on the quarterback, but at the same time, I mean, look, how many passing attempts did they have? They had 30 passing attempts to 26 rushing attempts. They almost had they were getting close to that 50-50 split. So that's a little bit tricky. DeMarvin Leal had a great play in the second quarter where he got through fast, but he couldn't finish on Geno Smith. It was on third down, and it was their first third down conversion of the game, and he couldn't bring him down. I thought he was held right off the bat, but they didn't call hardly any penalties except the very first play. And then that actually ended up leading to a touchdown later, and it just goes to show how one barely miss on a third down, and it completely changes everything. I would have liked to have seen them at least get a little bit more pressure, but you had no Cam Hayward, you had no TJ Watt, you had no, it was who it was for who was out there.
Bryan, thoughts on the pass rush?
I thought, like Dave said, that we could have seen more out of them, and you're going to, once again, look who's out there. I know who's out there on the other side too. But I thought Leal looked really fast there, and other guys got in there too. You have those quarterback hits. Really for me, I just thought where they were and where they're starting is head and shoulders starting better than they did in past years, including the pass rush. Now we've seen a lot of we're kind of spoiled because we had the Tuzar Skippers and the Ulysses Gilbert the thirds that just went crazy in the fourth quarters of these preseason games in the last couple of years, and even last year with Jones too. You had these guys just going nuts, flying all over the field. You didn't see that in this game, but when it counted, Mark Robinson got in there fast, stuck somebody, and that's the guy everybody wants to see. You don't want to see a bubble guy. And, some might say that Mark Robinson is a bubble guy. I mean, I don't. I mean, he's a draft pick. You don't want to see a guy that's an undrafted free agent that's been on 3 different teams making those plays. You want to see a guy that you invested a pick in and making that play and feel really good about him because you heard some hype in preseason that this guy's going to be really good. Miles Jack said it too, and you saw him do it. So there's a lot of hope when you get that big play when it counts, because all Seattle did, they didn't have that far to go to get in field goal range and win that game.
It's good to see a timely play. Sometimes it's just you got to win those timely plays, and I always bring it up every year, multiple times. It's an old Joe Gibbs quote. There's a football game can be boiled down to 5 or 6 plays. You just have to win those plays. The Steelers won one of those plays, and it set up the win. Dave,
and Coach Tomlin specifically called that situational splash.
There you go.
As coming up with the big play in that moment. But I will tell you, that wasn't the hardest hit of the night. What do you think the hardest hit of the night was?
The personal foul on the sideline.
Oh no. The hardest hit to me was the play that ended the game when they were doing the laterals.
Oh yeah,
and that was
Khalil Davis. He got him.
That was a pretty good one.
He got him. He lined him up. He got him good. Oh boy. Okay, let's talk one last thing before we call it a show. I want to talk about the coaching staff, but mainly the coordinators. And you think about it, we had Terrell Austin first time as calling defensive plays for the Steelers defense. You had Matt Canada, which while he was there last season, we could all be honest that it was not the same personnel that he would want. So, Dave, what are your thoughts on the coordinators? You can go either way. It doesn't matter.
I thought can I ask you guys a question? Did it seem like they were running a little bit more Canada-esque stuff with Kenny Pickett than they did with the other two?
I noticed with Pickett, there was more tempo, in my opinion. They weren't.
That might have been what it was.
They were not taking the full 25 seconds to get the play in, make sure they substitute. It seemed like they had their package ready to go, and they were going to get in there and let's run a play. But that could just be me and my excitement for watching Kenny Pickett.
But I mean, with both coordinators basically going with, the word that we use early on in the preseason, very vanilla stuff of what they would like to do, I thought that the coordinators did all right with what they were dealing with. Specifically, I mean, the defense, all you're really doing out there especially the first preseason game is making sure you're having the packages you want out there, and you're just hoping the guys make plays. That's what kind of makes it disappointing with the run defense. It's not like they were running fancy schemes or anything that you're going to see during the regular season. They're just out there asking guys to make plays, and there was times where they weren't making plays in the run game. So, but I don't put anything with the coordinator there. Really did like seeing the offense put up 32 points, even though it was a preseason game.
Yeah, good point. Bryan, coordinators, what do you think?
They put stamps on everything. This was to me definitively them calling out both Matt Canada and Terrell Austin with an assist. I know you got to throw in the assist there to Brian Flores as well, that there are new sheriffs in town. And this is a new game. This is a new brand of Steelers offense. This is a new brand of Steelers defense. And it just seemed different all the way around. It just didn't seem ho-hum to me on defense. I know mentioned watered down. You mentioned vanilla. I get that. But it just seemed like there was more intensity, even though it was vanilla. And I just really think they were looking to establish a line in the sand on how good they can be and say that this is the bar is going to be raised and the bar is going to be different. This is not Randy Land. This is not the way it was with Ben. This wasn't old Ben at the end. So right now there's no country for old Ben, and I get it. So it's just saying this is a new beginning. And those guys are looking for a new beginning with no excuses. There's finally nobody on either side saying that, overruling them, unless it's Mike Tomlin. But they've got control of their particular units, and I really like what I saw.
I can't really speak to Austin based on the fact of had the vast majority of his starters were not playing. So I'm sure they're not going to do much until those guys see the field. In terms of the offense, it felt like to me that Matt Canada was like, you know what, guys, last year was last year. Let's go out there and let's run the football. Let's really show them what we can do. And we don't have to be exotic and super scheme specific. We can just go out and be the better football team. And I think they did that. The offense looked good and they had their starters out there, obviously. So that's something to consider as well. Want to get the super chat here. $10 from Andrew Palladino. Thank you very much. The post-game trio is back. Steelers football is back. Everything feels a tad different this season, but it's a good different. Looking forward to it. You guys rock. Allegheny Andy, our buddy Andy, thank you very much for the tip. We really appreciate it, as always. Let's do some final thoughts here. Dave, anything else you want to talk about the game or what? Go for it.
Yeah, well, the more I thought about it as Bryan was talking with the coordinators is the Steelers offense just felt different. I don't want to knock number 7 or anything, but because they had quarterbacks that could at least move or shuffle in the pocket and do the things they need to do. It was great to see a quarterback get the ball and not instantly be throwing it as soon as they got it. It just felt different. I'm not saying it's phenomenal. It's one preseason game. Remember, this is one piece of the puzzle of the 3 that's going to do. You got to put everything together. Right now, we're talking about, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Warren, Benny Snell didn't play. He's going to be shipped out of town. We don't know what's going to happen in these other 2 games. So remember, this is good. This is exciting. This is piece 1 of 3. They got to put it together, these players, to have a better idea what's going on in all 3. And for all we know, there might be someone who didn't play tonight that we're not sure is going to make the roster or what they're going to do. And they're going to come out and be either great or not so great in these other games. So there's more data to be gathered before they get down to this 53-man roster. But man, it was great. It was great to put on the jersey. I'm wearing the inverted bumblebee socks, which instead of gold with black stripes is black with gold stripes. I got the towels, the terrible towels out. It was just so great to actually make that transition and get ready for a game. It didn't matter that it was preseason. It was a wonderful feeling, and it's going to be interesting this coming week. We'll talk much more about this on the preview because they're going to be playing a team that's playing their third preseason game. They're on a different schedule. Bryan mentioned it last week, and that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out next Saturday. But for now, you got to look at the positive. You got to love the offense. Not very encouraged by some of the stuff with the defense, but hopefully that's going to all come into place come September.
Bryan, final thoughts. Go for it.
Dave's absolutely right about me throwing shade at Ben. And one thing that I don't want to do is diminish what he's done here. But we don't want ghosts either. We need Mitch to be Mitch, Mason to be Mason, and Kenny to be Kenny. And we don't need these guys trying to fill Ben's shoes. We need these guys to be the best possible versions of themselves. So I'm really excited about that as well. And I don't want a Hall of Fame career of 18 years of Ben to hang over their heads. I want them to make their own mark. And the coordinators have to go ahead and put them in that position too, so they can put their stamp on that as well. One thing that Jeff and Dave mentioned earlier in the show, that it would have been very easy for the Steelers to go ahead and line up for that field goal at the end of the game. I desperately did not want them to do that. They could have very easily won that game with a field goal, but I would have felt a little more hollow than how elated I feel right now, the fact that they won with a touchdown at the end of the game. Because there's going to be opportunities where you're down by 4 and you need that touchdown at the end of the game. And you don't want to line up for that field goal because you can't. So in this position, you have nothing to lose. If that game ends in a tie, that's fine, because it's preseason. It does not matter. But what you want to do is you want to be able to maximize and put these guys in position to taste different samples of what they're going to see in the in the regular season. And Kenny Pickett's the guy who needs to taste that more than anybody. And what did they do? They put him in that 4th and 2 situation when it was a 2-point conversion attempt. And he was able to come through. He also came through in what I like to call, instead of like I just said, instead of just setting up for a field goal, being down by 4 situation where he came through and they got the winning touchdown and they iced it right there. So it's really cool for me.
I said this on my Let's Ride podcast, and I'm going to stick with it. And that is, we as fans can't be blinded by any result, either one. Win or lose, you have to kind of read the tea leaves, see the forest through the woods, all that, those crazy sayings. But still, I think what you want to focus on is, how did they play? How did the Steelers play? You can talk specific positions, you can talk about specific players. And I think it's important that, everyone that's out there, and right now live, we have over 470 people, both on YouTube and Facebook, watching us live. Understand that at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, we are going to be breaking this game down every which way and sideways, both on the podcast side and on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. And so on the podcast side, I just want to remind everyone that's watching live that we have so much more than just our live shows on YouTube and Facebook. We have a whole lineup that's just audio only. You can find us anywhere where you get your podcasts: Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, you name it, all for free. Check it out, because we're going to have everything covered from this game as they lead up to the next game against the Jacksonville Jaguars next Saturday. So, gentlemen, for Bryan, for Dave, I'm Jeff. Thank you all for taking the time. We'll see.
I'm just